States spends more on its military than the next 8 highest spending countries combined. The U.S. has the highest GDP in the world. The rest of the world can't get enough of America's sneakers and songs and sodas and movies and iPhones. 8 of the 10 richest people in the world are American. But what does all this mean for the average American? Are his or her basic needs being fulfilled? How does the average American's quality of life compare with the rest of the world? The answers aren't pretty. America fares surprisingly poorly in the groundbreaking. The United States spends more on its military than the next 8 highest spending countries combined. The U.S. has the highest GDP in the world. The rest of the world can't get enough of America's sneakers and songs and sodas and movies and iPhones. 8 of the 10 richest people in the world are American. But what does all this mean for the average American? Are his or her basic needs being fulfilled? How does the average American's quality of life compare with the rest of the world? The answers aren't pretty. America fares surprisingly poorly in the groundbreaking new Social Progress Index recently released by a team led by Michael Porter. Porter is, of course, professor at the Harvard Business School, a hardcore capitalist, a registered Republican. He is said to be the most cited scholar in economics and business in the world. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Fareed. Pleasure to be here.
So this is absolutely fascinating stuff. You were shocked at what you learned about America.
Yeah, I think this was not the picture of America that I think many of us Americans have, that we are a leader, a social leader, that we've advanced the ball in terms of opportunity and the needs of our citizens. And it shows anything but that.
So if you look at the Social Progress Index on the whole, what's striking is the top countries are New Zealand, Switzerland, Iceland, these small countries. But basically then a lot of European countries and Canada beat the United States.
Correct.
The United States is 16, Ireland is ahead of it, Japan is ahead of it, Britain is ahead of it, Germany is ahead of it. What does that tell us? What is that measure?
So this effort tries to really, for the first time ever, take the, let's call it the social or community or quality of life dimensions of a society and capture those in a rigorous measurement framework using the best data available in the world that's the best and objective measures of these various multiple things. But, of course, social progress is a broad concept.
Right. And that's why you break it down
and that's why
into
we break
these
it down.
subcategories.
Right.
Health and wellness. Japan is number 1. Italy is number 2. Switzerland is number 3. You have to go all the way to 70 to get to the United States.
It's an area where the U.S., if you actually look objectively, we're just not delivering. We actually spend the most money on this of any country in the world, probably in all of recorded history in terms of our healthcare budget every year, but in terms of the actual outcomes, and that, by the way, the Social Progress Index measures the outcomes you achieve, not how much you spent, not how much you care, not whether you have a big heart and, want to be a good guy.
Mortality rates,
obesity
life expectancy,
rates,
obesity,
right.
Child mortality.
Right, and it turns out that we're number 70 in the world.
What I was struck by is you look at the countries that are around that number.
Yeah.
It's Iran, it's Kuwait.
Yeah, right,
there's no European country.
No European country. So we're way below. We're way below the Europeans on that.
Now, healthcare, I think people understand we do badly. At least a lot of people understand it.
Right.
Here's one that I was struck by: access to information and communications.
Right.
We think we are the most networked, plugged-in society, and if you look at our top 5%, I suppose that's true. But again, if you look at the rankings, and I looked at how you measured, this was very rigorous. This is all very quantitative. Iceland is number 1, Norway is number 2, Sweden is number 3. To get to the United States, we have to go down to 23 on access to information and communications.
Yeah.
Did that surprise you, and what does it tell you?
It does surprise me. I mean, again, at some level in America, we have incredible access to information and communication, but if you look at objective measures of whether that's penetrated very broadly throughout our population and to really all of our citizens, that's where we start to come up short. Our mobile telephone subscriptions, on that particular sub-metric, we're 83. Even on press freedom, where we are the land of the free, But if you actually look at, in the nitty-gritty on the grassroots level, The international objective ranking systems show us to be, 21st on that.
On this overall category, Jamaica scores higher than the United States.
Exactly.
We're between Jamaica and Latvia.
And Latvia, yeah.
Access to basic knowledge,
Yeah.
another category
Yeah.
which I was fascinated by.
Yep.
Number 1, Japan. Number 2, New Zealand. Number 3, Norway.
Yep.
39, the United States.
Yeah.
And again, if you look at the company we keep there, Cuba is ahead of us, and Georgia is just behind
Yeah,
us.
yeah. And that gets to things like really the enrollment in primary school. Now, of course, most Americans go to primary school, but the percentage that do is actually not that high relative to some of the other countries. Enrollment
The
in
dropout
secondary
rates,
school.
right? The dropout rates for secondary school are very high.
Very high, and so you start to see that. I think we as Americans don't necessarily see ourselves the way we really are. You know, we have this sort of idealized view that we pioneered all this stuff, the universal education and press freedom, and we did. But to keep up and to keep driving and to expand and to access more and more people takes a very determined effort. And I think in this country we haven't delivered in many respects.
That's the great story, isn't it? I think because you're right. So many of these areas, access to education.
Right.
The United States is absolutely the pioneer
Right.
in the 19th and early 20th centuries.
Right.
But the great story seems to me the catch-up, the
catch-up.
rise of the rest. where we
Everybody's
fall.
caught up, and a lot of people have caught up and even passed us. I think, hopefully Americans can, we can start to look at ourselves honestly here. We can look at ourselves objectively. We can understand that there's a tremendous both social and economic interest in moving America forward, back closer to a leadership position on many of these areas. And frankly, I think the reason we are such a leader economically is because many, many years ago, we made commitments to be leaders in all these areas. But now that's kind of fraying. And it's interesting that this message all over the world has been strikingly received, in the sense that people are very interested, because it turns out that no matter who you are, even if you're Sweden or New Zealand that are on the top of our list, there are still red marks on your report card.
Michael Porter, pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for